The cage on Tau Ceti 9 in the year 2479. Humans had spread across dozens of star systems. They built space stations, mining colonies, and trade routes between the stars. But with growth came danger. And some places, dark corners of space, were no longer under Earth's control. Captain Rain was not a hero. He was just a cargo pilot, flying between outposts to deliver supplies. His ship, the Sparrow, was old, scratched, and barely held together. But it worked, and for Rain, that was enough. He had landed on Tau Ceti 9, a dusty mining station known for illegal trading. He hated the place, but he needed fuel and credits. The station smelled like rust and oil. People didn't talk much, they just stared. Rain walked toward the control center to check in. But on his way, something strange happened. His wrist scanner beeped. Unknown life form detected. It read, but the signal was weak. It was coming from the lower cargo levels, a part of the station that was supposed to be sealed. Rain should have ignored it. He had made a rule. No hero stuff. No problems, no drama, just fly, get paid, and leave. But something about the signal felt wrong. He checked around, no guards nearby. He quietly slipped down a maintenance hatch and followed the signal. The air got colder, and the lights flickered. This part of the station hadn't been used in years. At the end of the corridor was a locked door, old, rusted, but still powered. Rain hacked into the control panel using his ship's override code. The door slid open with a slow hiss. Inside, he saw a large glass chamber. And inside that was her, a child. Maybe 5 or 6 in human years, but clearly not human. Her skin was pale blue and shimmered like water. Her hair was silver white, and her eyes glowing and wide locked onto Rain with a mixture of fear and curiosity. She was chained inside the glass chamber. Rain stepped closer. The girl didn't speak, but she pressed her hand to the glass. Rain slowly did the same. His scanner tried to read her again. Species, unknown. Status, life sign stable. DNA match, none. She was intelligent. And she was trapped. This wasn't a rescue pod, it was a cage. Then he saw it, branding marks on the metal wall. Symbols of the slave market. Rain had heard rumors. Some mining stations secretly captured and sold alien life forms. Illegal, cruel, and hidden from the public. His stomach turned. This wasn't just a lost child. She had been stolen, sold like cargo, and now she was waiting to be shipped again. Rain looked around. There were no alarms yet. Whoever was guarding this place hadn't noticed him. Not yet, he whispered to her. I'll get you out. Of course, she didn't understand, but she seemed to feel his intention. Her hand stayed on the glass, trembling. Rain opened his tool bag and started cutting the locks on the chamber. Each spark felt like a gunshot in the silence. Every second, he expected guards to rush in. Suddenly, the lights went red. Warning sirens started to blare across the station. Someone had found out. Rain pulled the chamber door open and reached for the girl. She flinched, scared. But then she stepped forward and wrapped her tiny arms around his neck. Rain picked her up and ran, down the corridor, through the hatch, back to the docking bay. Guards were shouting behind him. Blasters fired. He didn't stop. He reached the Sparrow, slammed the hatch closed, and launched without permission as the ship rose into space. Blasts from the station's turrets flashed across the hull, but the Sparrow held barely. They were out, safe for now. The girl sat in the co-pilot seat, wrapped in a blanket. She stared at him, her eyes full of questions. He didn't know her name, her language, or her past, but he had made a choice. Rain wasn't just a cargo pilot anymore. He had just made a powerful enemy, and he had no idea what kind of being he had saved. But one thing was clear. This was just the beginning. Asterisk, the silent passenger. The girl hadn't made a sound since they escaped. Not a word, not a whisper, just silence. Captain Rain sat in the cockpit of the Sparrow, watching her from the corner of his eye. She was still curled up in the co-pilot seat, small hands clutching the blanket like it was armor. Outside the window, stars stretched past them like silver rain. They were moving fast, too fast for safety, but Rain didn't care. He just needed distance. He reached for a protein bar from the dashboard and handed it to her. She didn't take it, just looked at it, then at him. Her eyes glowed faintly, like moonlight trapped in water. "You gotta eat," he said softly. She blinked once, then turned her head away. Rain sighed. He didn't know what species she was. He didn't know if she even could eat human food. He just knew one thing: someone had locked her in a cage, and they wanted her back. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Rain frowned, checked the system console. Nothing wrong, no power drop, no damage report. But the flicker came again. And this time, something else changed. The air felt heavier, like the ship had dropped in pressure, even though everything was sealed. Then he noticed the girl. She had closed her eyes. Her skin was glowing brighter now, like soft blue fire beneath her skin. Her lips were moving barely, but there was no sound. Then the lights dimmed completely. Rain jumped to his feet. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked, voice sharp. No answer. The ship's control panel started flashing random symbols. Not in English, not in any human language. He reached for the emergency override. Suddenly, all the lights came back. The console returned to normal. Everything looked fine. Except the girl was now staring right at him. And her voice, calm and clear, spoke inside his mind. "You are not a threat." Rain froze. His mouth went dry. "You just spoke," he said. But she hadn't moved her lips. She tilted her head slightly. "Mind link. Temporary," the voice said again, directly into his thoughts. "I am sorry." "It will fade." Rain sat down slowly. "So you can talk," he said out loud. Trying to process it, the girl nodded once. "Only when safe." Rain rubbed his forehead. "This just gets weirder by the second," he muttered. He looked at her again. "What's your name?" She paused, then said, in his mind, "Name does not translate. You may call me Luma." "Luma," he repeated. It fit her somehow, soft but sharp, alien, but not cold. Rain stood up and went to the storage bay. They had maybe 2 days' worth of food and water. Not enough. He had to land soon, refuel, and hide. Because he knew one thing: if that mining station was part of a slave ring, they would track him, and they wouldn't stop. He came back to the cockpit. Luma was now standing, staring at the stars. Her hand was raised like she could feel something through the glass. "What were you doing earlier?" Rain asked. When the lights went out, she looked at him. "I was checking." "Listening? To what?" "To see if they're following," she said simply. Rain's blood ran cold. "And?" Luma's expression darkened. "They are." Rain turned back to the console. Scanning for ships, nothing. But if Luma could sense them, that meant they had tech far beyond what he understood. He thought for a moment, then made a decision. They couldn't go to any major port, too risky. He knew one place. A refueling outpost hidden in an asteroid field. No official records, no questions asked, but full of smugglers, mercs, and people with loose morals. If they were going to hide, they'd have to hide among shadows. Rain locked in the course and activated stealth mode. The engines dimmed in near silence. The Sparrow turned, and they slipped into the dark. As they left the system behind, Rain glanced at Luma again. She was watching him now, like she was trying to understand something. "Why did you take me?" she asked, this time with her real voice. It was quiet, shaky, but real. "Why didn't you sell me like the others?" Rain stared at her. He didn't have a perfect answer. Didn't need one, because no kid belongs in a cage, he said. Luma looked down. Then after a pause, she whispered, "Then I will help you now." Rain had no idea what that meant, but he knew the rules of the galaxy were changing, and the girl beside him. She was part of something bigger, much bigger. The trap in the shadows. The first bullet hit the Sparrow before they even reached the asteroid field. Not a warning, a kill shot. Captain Rain grabbed the controls and rolled the ship hard left. Metal screeched, sparks flew. "Shields down to 40%. "The ship's I announced calmly. Another blast hit the right engine. Where did they come from? Rain shouted, trying to get a visual, but the attacker wasn't showing up on radar. Luma didn't speak. She just stood behind him, eyes glowing brighter than ever. Her hands hovered in the air, like she could feel invisible strings. "There's more than one," she said softly. Rain's heart sank. "This was supposed to be a ghost route," he muttered. "No patrols, no satellites. Just old rocks and space dust." Another hit. This time closer to the cockpit. Rain cursed under his breath and jerked the ship into a spiral. The stars outside blurred into streaks. Luma stepped forward and placed her hand on the console. Instantly, the ship's systems flickered, then rebooted stronger, faster, sharper. "What the hell did you just do?" Rain asked, shocked. "I sensed," she replied. "Your ship listens now." The radar lit up with red dots. 4 enemy ships, cloaked, running silent. They were waiting for him. It was a trap. Rain had led them right into it. "They knew we'd come here," he said. "They're not just tracking us. They're predicting us." Luma nodded. "They see through paths," she said. "They're called the Voidborn." That word chilled Rain deeper than the cold of space. He had heard whispers, Voidborn. Rumored species that could bend light, hack minds, and erase colonies without leaving a trace. They weren't slavers. They were something worse. The Sparrow dove into the asteroid field. Rocks the size of buildings tumbled past as Rain zigzagged between them. One wrong move and they'd be vaporized. The enemy ships followed, firing in bursts, trying to herd them, not kill them. They wanted Luma alive. Rain knew it now. She wasn't just a rare alien child. She was the key to something. Something big. "Can you fight them?" he asked, voice shaking. Luma didn't answer. She just closed her eyes. A low hum filled the air coming from her body. Not the ship. It felt like gravity shifting, like time bending slightly. Then everything went still. For 1 second, the ship didn't move. The asteroids froze, and the radar went blank. Rain blinked. What just happened? Luma opened her eyes. "They lost us," she whispered, exhausted. "I pulled us." Out of their sight, she collapsed into the co-pilot chair, breathing hard. Her skin was dimmer now, her light fading. Rain reached over and steadied her. "You can't keep doing that," he said. "You'll burn yourself out." She gave a weak smile. "Not yet." They slipped deeper into the asteroid belt and found a hollow crater on a dead rock. Rain landed the ship and powered everything down. Dark, quiet, hidden. He checked the systems. No trackers, no beacons. They were safe. For now. Rain turned to Luma. "You said they were Voidborn. You know them?" She nodded slowly. "They took my people. I escaped." Rain sat down beside her. "You're not just a refugee," he said. "You're a survivor." She didn't reply, but her silence said enough. They sat there in the quiet, surrounded by miles of dead stone and drifting metal. Rain's mind raced. He had to plan, fix the ship, get supplies, and find out what Luma really was. But then he noticed something strange on the console. A new message had appeared. In red, "Transmission received code, Eclipse 7. It wasn't from the attackers. It was an old military encryption, one Rain hadn't seen since he left the service. He tapped the message. A voice played, broken and low. "If you have the girl, do not trust Earth Command. They want her too. They always have." Rain stared at the screen. The words echoed in his head like a thunderclap. He looked at Luma, who was now asleep, glowing softly again. What had he gotten himself into? Because now he knew. It wasn't just alien slavers after her. Humans were in on it too. Asterisk, the memory that wasn't hers. The fire wasn't red. It was white, white like lightning, burning through the sky, and it didn't stop. Luma ran, barefoot across a silver floor covered in ash and shattered glass. She was smaller then, maybe half the size she was now. Behind her, tall figures screamed in a language made of light and sound. One by one, they vanished in flashes of black smoke. She reached for her mother's hand, glowing, soft, warm, but the fire took her too, and Luma kept running, alone. She hid in the engine chamber of a great starship. She held her breath for hours, and when they finally found her, the voices were cold, metallic, and human. "You said she was the last," one man said. "She'll sell for more than the rest combined," another replied. Luma didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just closed her eyes and erased the sound. Just like her mother taught her, Rain jolted awake, breathing hard. He didn't remember falling asleep, but the dream no. The memory was still in his mind, like someone had placed it there. He looked over at Luma, asleep in the corner of the ship. Her light flickering like a dying candle. She had shared it, not on purpose maybe, but somehow, in sleep, she had linked with him. He sat quietly for a while, the silence broken only by the hum of backup power. Then he pulled up the encrypted message from Part 3 again. If you have the girl, do not trust Earth Command. They want her too. They always have. Rain couldn't believe it, his own people. The same Earth Command that trained him, fed him, protected the colonies. Why would they want a child locked in a cage? Unless she wasn't just a child. He looked again at Luma. Her body barely moved. Like she was floating in sleep. She looked peaceful but fragile. Whatever she had done to hide them in the asteroid field had drained her. And he knew she couldn't do it again soon. That's when the emergency light blinked. Not a weapon alert. A proximity alarm. Rain sat up fast and checked the monitor. It wasn't a ship. It was a drone small. Black, Earth-made, not military, corporate. Grid Cores, Rain muttered. A private company known for deep space mining and dirty secrets. They shouldn't be out this far. But somehow they were here. And scanning, Rain knew the game now. Someone had leaked their location, either the Voidborn or someone on the inside. He didn't wake Luma. Instead, he powered up the ship silently and lifted them off the rock. He had one last contact. Deep in the outer rings, someone who owed him. A hacker named Crix. If anyone could dig into the Grid Core's files, it was him. As the Sparrow slipped away from the asteroid, the drone followed. Rain didn't fire. He let it follow. He wanted it to, if they were going to play games. He was ready to set a trap of his own. 5 hours later, they landed on a broken station orbiting a red dwarf star. The place was barely holding together, just a few gravity pods and a life support dome. But it had what Rain needed. Crix, the hacker, lived in a room filled with screens. Wires and music from 5 centuries ago. His eyes widened when he saw Luma. You brought that here? He hissed. You trying to get us all killed? Rain didn't flinch. I need answers, he said. Dig up everything Grid Cores has on Project Eclipse. Crix hesitated, then sighed and got to work. His fingers danced across the keyboard like fire. Luma stood still, eyes scanning the room. She didn't speak. But Rain noticed her light was beginning to return. Like being near truth made her stronger. After 10 tense minutes, Crix stopped typing. He turned to Rain, pale and sweating. Project Eclipse isn't a military op, he said. It's a joint contract between Earth Command and Grid Cores. Goal, capture and study Type Z sentience. Type Z? Rain asked. Crix nodded. Unknown class alien species with telepathic, technological, or reality-bending abilities. He pointed to Luma. She's not rare. She's classified. Rain stepped back. He had rescued a child, but now he realized he had also stolen a weapon. Or at least that's what they thought she was. But to him, she was just a kid who never got to grow up in peace. Luma looked at him then, and for the first time, she smiled, not out of fear or sadness, but trust. Rain knew what he had to do. They wouldn't run anymore. They would fight. The girl who shouldn't exist. They watched her through the dark glass, even though she was light years away. She's awake, the voice said, a cold, deep tone that echoed across the black room. Another voice replied, sharp and afraid. She survived Tau Ceti. She's syncing with old tech. She's growing. The first voice was quiet for a moment. Then it whispered, she was never supposed to make it this far. A red hologram flickered above the table. Luma's face, young, glowing, innocent. But underneath the image, words pulsed in red. Eclipse Class Z1. Do not engage alone. Send the retrieval unit, the voice said. And tell them, if the pilot resists, erase the ship. Rain didn't need sensors to know they were being followed. He could feel it in the way the stars seemed to bend. How the air inside the ship felt heavier, tighter, like space itself was watching. Luma sat cross-legged in the middle of the ship's small cargo bay. Eyes closed, hands resting on her knees. She wasn't meditating. She was listening, beyond metal, beyond space. "They're close," she whispered. "4 ships. Cloaked, human pilots." Rain tensed. "How long?" "Minutes." He didn't wait. He opened the weapons locker, pulled out his old gear, a plasma rifle, a shock shield, and one EMP grenade he'd been saving since the war. "I thought I was done with this life," he muttered. "Guess I thought wrong." Luma stood, her glow now steady, stronger. She didn't flinch, didn't shake. Her voice was calm. "I'm not hiding this time." Rain looked at her. "You sure you're ready?" "No," she said, "but I'm done running." The enemy came fast. Their ships didn't knock, didn't hail. They just surrounded the Sparrow and fired a pulse blast that shut down all systems in an instant. Rain and Luma were left in the dark, floating, dead in space. Then came the boarding crew. 4 armored soldiers with shock rifles and scanner drones. They moved through the ship like it already belonged to them. "Target acquired," one of them said. Stepping into the bay, he aimed straight at Luma. "She's smaller than expected," he added, almost laughing. That was his last mistake. Luma opened her eyes. They weren't blue now. They were silver fire, and the room breathed. The walls shimmered. The soldier dropped his gun, screaming. Rain watched in shock as the weapon melted in his hands, turning into dust. One by one, the other intruders tried to fire. Nothing worked. Their tech shut down, their armor locked. Their drones fell from the air like dead birds. Luma stepped forward, her feet never touching the ground. "You hunt me," she said. "You call me a weapon. Then let me show you what a weapon really is." A wave of energy burst from her chest, silent, pure, unstoppable. The enemy soldiers were pushed back, slammed into the walls, and left unconscious. No blood, no death. Just silence. Rain stared at her, stunned. "Luma." She turned to him, tears in her eyes, not from pain, from control. For the first time, she had chosen her power, not run from it. "I didn't kill them," she said quietly. "I just made them stop." Rain nodded slowly. "You did good," he said. "You did real good." The ship's systems began to reboot. Luma placed her hand on the main console. With a single pulse of light, everything came back to life, brighter, faster, cleaner than before. Rain checked the scanners. The 4 ships outside were gone, vanished without firing another shot. "They were scared," he said. "They should be," she replied. He looked at her, not as a passenger, not as a rescued kid, but as a partner. "You're not the cargo," he said. "You're the storm." She smiled. "We still have far to go." Rain nodded, and behind them, deep in the void, the warning went out. The Eclipse class was active, and she had chosen a side. Asterisk, the ship that shouldn't existed, drifted where no light reached. A dead ship, silent and broken, lost between forgotten stars. No name on its hull, no signal, just a black stain against black space. But deep inside its frozen decks, something still lived. Not a person, not quite an AI core. Ancient and damaged, flickered weakly. It had been waiting, not for rescue, for someone brave or foolish enough to listen. Rain stared out the window of the Sparrow. Luma sat beside him, silent, eyes locked on the ghost ship floating ahead. Crix's voice buzzed through the cum. "That's it," he said. "The Dawnfire. Earth's first contact ship." Rain frowned. "That ship disappeared before I was even born," Crix replied. "Because they made it disappear. It's where they found her kind, where the lies started." Rain turned to Luma. She didn't look surprised. She just nodded. "My people were sleeping," she said, "waiting for peace. But Earth woke them up with fire. They docked with the Dawnfire manually. No systems responded, no lights welcomed them." Rain and Luma stepped into the corridor with flashlights. The walls were scarred by plasma burns. Signs of a battle, signs of regret. They reached the bridge, and there it was. The AI core, still active, barely. A flicker of light blinked on the console. "Play last log?" Rain pressed yes, and the past spoke. "This is Captain Mallory of the Dawnfire. We made contact. They're not hostile. They're beautiful. They speak through light, through thought, through emotion. They offered peace. And we A pause, then a whisper. We fired first. The recording glitched. Static crashing through the audio. Then one last message came through, quiet and cracked. We told Earth they were dangerous, because we were afraid of what they could become. We killed them to stay on top. If someone finds this, tell them, we were the monsters. The console went dark. The eye died. Rain stood in silence. Luma's face was unreadable, but a single tear slid down her cheek, glowing faintly. He turned to her. So this is why they want you, he said. Because your kind was never a threat. They were hope, Luma nodded. And now I'm the last piece they can control. Rain clenched his fists. Not anymore. But just as they turned to leave, the ship trembled. A warning light flickered on the wall. Inbound vessel detected. Signature, Earth Command. Rain cursed. How did they find us? Luma whispered. They always knew. They've been guiding us here. Rain looked around the bridge. Then his eyes landed on a final console, locked by a command key. What is it? Luma stepped forward, her fingers glowing as she touched the panel. The lock opened, revealing a control for a deep space beacon. It's a call, she said. A signal to the rest of my kind. Rain's eyes widened. There are more? She nodded. Sleeping, hidden, scattered across systems. Rain stared at the console, then at Luma. You activate that beacon. They'll come, your people. But so will war. Luma looked at him, eyes steady, voice soft. I don't want revenge, she said. I just want truth. But once the truth wakes up, no one can put it back to sleep. Rain stood frozen. Outside, the Earth Command ship was getting closer. He looked at Luma again, at the last survivor, at the child who was never supposed to live, and he made a choice. Do it, he said. Let them hear. Luma pressed her hand to the beacon. Light burst from the ship like a silent scream. The stars seemed to shimmer as the signal spread across the galaxy. It was not a message of war. It was a heartbeat. We're still here. The stars answered at first. Nothing happened. The signal pulsed outward, bright and soft, then disappeared into the dark. But something in the galaxy shifted. Solar winds changed direction. Dead planets hummed. Black holes pulsed like hearts beating in the deep. The stars remembered, and they answered. Rain stood at the edge of the Dawnfire's bridge, watching the Earth Command warship slow to a stop. It didn't fire, didn't move closer. It just waited. They don't know what to do, he muttered. They thought we were running. Luma stood beside him, her glow now steady and strong. They thought I was alone, she said. But now, they're afraid. Rain tapped into the communication channel. The screen flickered, then showed the face of a general gray uniform. Cold eyes. Captain Rain, he said, voice calm but sharp. You've made a mistake. Rain folded his arms. You made it first, he replied. When you lied to the whole galaxy. The general didn't blink. That girl is classified material. She carries energy that could rewrite physics. She belongs to no one, Rain snapped. Not even you. A pause. Then the general leaned forward. She is not human, he said quietly. She doesn't think like us. She doesn't value life the way we do. Behind him, Luma stepped forward. I value life more than you ever did, she said calmly. Because I've seen it destroyed. The general looked directly at her. There are ships moving toward your location, he said. If you surrender now, we can still avoid. But then the console flashed. Dozens of unknown ships had appeared across long-range sensors. Not Earth ships, not Voidborn, something new. Or very, very old. Rain stared in awe. They came, he whispered. Luma smiled, just barely. They remember, she said. They've been waiting too. The Earth Command ship backed off, retreating like prey, sensing a predator nearby. The screen flickered again. This time, another face appeared. Not human. Blue skin, white eyes, quiet power. It spoke in Luma's language. She closed her eyes, listening, then translated. They ask if we want peace. Rain looked at her. That's your choice, he said. Yours alone. Luma turned to the screen. I want peace, she said. But I also want the truth. There was silence. Then the ships began to shift, not into attack formation, but into orbit, creating a ring around the Dawnfire. A shield, not a sword. Back on Earth, broadcasts were interrupted. Every screen across the colonies showed the same image. A child glowing with starlight. And the words, "She was never a weapon. She was a witness. And we were the danger." Days passed. Earth Command was forced to step down. Grid cores collapsed. Truth spread faster than fear ever had. Luma didn't disappear. She walked through every city. Not as a threat, but as a reminder. Rain stayed by her side pilot, friend, protector. The galaxy changed because 2 lives refused to follow orders. And 1 child refused to be broken. Years later, a monument was built on Tau Ceti 9. The same place where Luma was once kept in a cage. It held no weapons, no names. Just a small plaque. Here stood the lie. Here walked the truth.